ông đó nè đo miền con tiếng lại miền miền đa vây đa chia đam phong đal con na phong ho ca chia ông vai từ ông một ta sa biết về tao a ra tao samma sambuddhassa san nam mô tassa bhagavata arahato samma sambuddhassa nam mô tassa bhagavata arahato samma sambuddhassaริกริยานามันสกาถวายบังคมในยมพระกรุณาจงเมียนดอพระดำเมียนพระเพียรนงพระอังเจียพระอรหันต์พระสาตรวงตราดังเนยใหญ่ยะทอดแต่พวงได้พระไปจำพวงพระอังอัดเมียนครูอาจารย์นาปรดนาพระอังลายได้ไปสาวพระกวีอรหันต์สัมมาสัมพุทโธวิเจจารณสัมปันโนสุขตาโลกวิโตอนันตราปริสัทยามสารติสันทาเตวมโนสานังพุทโธภควเวเตตังอรหัตติโกณสังยนตังปุญญังสรสานามิมิตังจะปุญญังอิเมสังการะอภิปุญญาเยนะสาปัญจไสลาเยจามเมตุเตยัมเปะเมยังพันเตวิสงวิสุระคันนทายะเตสารเนนะสหปัญจไสลาเยจามเมตาเตยัมเปะเมยังพันเตวิสงวิสุระคันนทายะเตสารเนนะสหปัญจไสลาเยจามเมอันดกะอังกัตวาไสลังเตธโนพันเต
นะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะ
นะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะ
พุทธังสรณังกัจฉามิ
พุทธังสรณังกัจฉามิ
ธัมมังสรณังกัจฉามิ
ธัมมังสรณังกัจฉามิ
สังฆังสรณังกัจฉามิ
สังฆังสรณังกัจฉามิ
ตุติยัมเปพุทธังสรณังกัจฉามิ
ตุเตยัมเปพุทธังสรณังกัจฉา
ตุ
มิ
ติยัมเปธัมมังสรณังกัจฉามิ
ตุเตยัมเปธัมมังสรณังกัจฉา
ตุ
มิ
ติยัมเปสังฆังสรณังกัจฉามิ
ตุเตยัมเปสังฆังสรณังกัจฉามิ
ตติยัมเป เปปุถยังสารนังกัจฉามิ
ตาเตยัมเปปุถทังสารนังยะชามินวันเตหังธัมมังจตุวิทังวารังธัมเมโยคาลิตาโตสาวข้าแม่ตตังนามังอันตมังเกณนวันเตหังสังกัญจตวิโตตมังสังเคโยคาลิตาโตสาวสังโฆข้าแม่ตตังยสัพพสัมปติสัตเยสัพพตกขวินยสายปรตังปรูธรรมังกะแลงวิปัตตปเดเปียหายยะสัพพสัมปัตสัตเยสัพพแพยวินิสายะบรตังปรูธรรมังกะลังวิปัตตปเดเปหายะสัพพสัมปัตสัตเยสัพพโรกวินิสายะบรตังปรูธรรมังกะลังโสมการนาទាំងឡាយចម្រើននៅព្រះបរិទ្ធិជ័យមានគោលដើម្បីការពារជានៅវិបត្តិគឺសេចក្តីអន្តរាយទាំងពួងដើម្បីឲ្យបានសម្រេចនូវសម្បត្តិគ្រប់យ៉ាងដើម្បីញ៉ាំតុកញ៉ាំភ័យញ៉ាំរោគទាំងអស់នោះឲ្យវិនិច្ឆ័យបាទទៅ
สัพเพเวตาอรหัตตาสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะหังสารนังกัจฉามิธัมมังสารนังกัจฉามิสังฆังสารนังกัจฉามิตุติยัมปิพุทธังสารนังกัจฉามิตุติยัมปิธัมมังสารนังกัจฉามิตุติยัมปิสังฆังสารนังกัจฉามิตติยัมปิพุทธังสารนังกัจฉามิตติยัมปิธัมมังสารนังกัจฉามิตติยัมปิสังฆังสารนังกัจฉามิสัมพุทเทอัตถเวสัญจตเวทสัญจสหัสเกปัญจสัตตสหัสานินามิยมิสรสาอาหังเตสังธรรมัญจสังขัญจอัตตเรนินามิยมิหังนมการานุเพียเวนะหันทวาสัมเปอปัตตเวอเนกาอันตรายาปวินาสันโตอาเสสตาสัมพุทเทปัญจปัญญาสัญจจตเวสเตสหัสเกตสสัตตสหัสานินามิยมิสรสาอาหังเตสังธรรมัญจสังขัญจอัตตเรนินามิยมิหังนมการานุปิยเวนะหันทวาสัมเปอปัตตเวอเนกาอันตรายาปวินาสันโตอาเสสตาสัมพุทเทนวัตตรสเตอัตจัตตาไลสหัสเกเวสเตสัตตสหัสานินามิยมิสรสาอาหังเตสังธรรมัญจสังขัญจอัตตเรนินามิยมิหังนมการานุปิยเวนะหันทวาสัพเพอปัตตเวอเนกาอันตรายาปวินาสันโตอาเสสัตตานิเทียนเนตาปัตตายตถากตาสัตสปารมยาตสะอปปารมยาตสปรมาตปารมยาปัญจมหาปริจจเกติสัจจรยาปัญจมปเวกเปียเวกันตังเจตังอภินากมนังปเทียนจรยังโพธิปัลลังเกเมียรมจยังสัพเพยตัญญนาปเดเวทังนวโลกตรธรรมเมตสัพเพปเมโพตกุณอาไวชัตวาเวสาลยาไตสุปาการันตเรสมัยมารตังปรตังกรันตาอายัสมาอานันตเตราวยการัญญจัตตังอปัตตเปตวาเกาเดสัตตสหัสสจักวาเลสเตปตายาสานัมปดกันหันตยัญจเวสาลยัมปเรโรเกียมโนสตเปกสัมโพตันตเวธรรมปยังกาปมันตรเทียเปสปรัตตันตังพระนามเมเหติยัญจะคุมาเอ กเรียเจียหราสวรรณาปตวะปปิยสาวตามตังนามาสามิหราสวรรณังปตวะปปิยสัมตยายจโกตามวิหารมุติวสังเยเปรียมนานะโมเตชะมังปาลยันตนะมัตตโพธิยานังนะมัตตโพธิยานะโมวิมุตตานังนะโมวิมุตติยามังสาวพระปรังกัตวะโมโรจรตเอสนะอเปตยัญจักกุมาเอกราชยารสวรรณาปตวะปปิยสาวตามตังนามาสามิหรสวรรณังปตวะปปิยสังตยาจโกตามหาไรมรตังเยพระมนาเวตกสัพพธรรมเมเตเมนะโมเตชะมังปาลยันตุนะมัตตโพธิยานังนะมัตตโพธิยานะโมวิมุตตานังนะโมวิมุตติยามังสาวปรัตตังกัตวาโมโรเวียสมกัปปยิเตตังยสัพพโลกัสมันเมียนสัมเปียวเยอปริมานังอดจังอัตโตจตรยัญจะสัมเปียจังอเวรังสปัตตังตัตตัญจรังนิสันนาเวียสยานาเวียยวตาสวิกตมัตโตเอตังสตังอัตถายพระมเมตังวิหารังจเมียวตัตถัญจานุปเกมไสลเวียเตสเนนะสัมปันนอกรรมเมสวินัยเกตแจงนาเกียรติเกปไสยังปนเรไตเตนตนนิมตังอวมังกลัญจะโยจามเนียปาสตนาสสัตโตปะปะกะหาโตสปนังอาการตังปทเทียนเพียเวนธรรมเมียนเพียเวนสังเกียนเพียเวนเมนาสมัยตโตคาปาตาชนะโตคาปยาปาตาชนะปเยสาวกาปาตาชนะสาวกาหาตสาเปเปปาในนาวเอตาวตาจะมเหสัมปตังปุญญสัมปตังสัพเพเตเวียนโมตันตสัพพสัมปัตตสัตติยเตียนังตันตสัตเตียยไสลังแรขันตสัพปเตียเฟียวเนียเปรตาหันตกายชันตเทวตากตาสัพเพโมเตียปลาปัตตาปัจเจกานันจิยัมปลังอรหันตานันจเตเจนรกังปนเทียมิสัพพะสาวยันตาปุริยโมเลสัจจานังนันทิวัตโนเอวังตวังวิจโยหาวิจญาสัจยมังกะเลอปาราชิตปาลังเกไสเสปัตวิปาวะเรอภิเสกเกสักโพธิยานังอาเกปะตาปมาตเตสญาคาตังสมังกะลังสปปเปียตังสหเจตังสกนาสมหัตตาจสยตังพระมจาไรสปตยะขนังกายกรรมังเวจากรรมังปตยะขนังปตยะขนังมโนกรรมังปนัยติเตปตยะขนังปตยะขนังกัตวานลพันตเตปตยะขนังสัพพมังกลังรักขันตุสัพพเทวตาสัพพพุทธิยานุปิยเวนสติยสาวไทยภวันตเตภวันตสัพพมังกลังรักขันตุสัพพเทวตาสัพพธรรมิยานุปิยเวนสติยสาวไทยภวันตเตภวันตสัพพมังกลังรักขันตุสัพพเทวตาสัพพสังฆยานุปิยเวนสติยสาวไทยภวันตเต
สัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะยังโนพันเต
ยังโนพันเต
ปันนบาตา
ปันนมัตตา
ทอมิกา
พอมิกา
ทอมเมลัทโท
พอมเมลัทโท
ทอมเมเนเวีย
พอมเมเนเวีย
อุปาติตา
ปาติตา
เมียตาเปโต
เมียตาเป โต
อาติเก
อาติเก
อุณวันเต
โอตวันเต
อุตุสะ
โอตุสะ
อิมัง
อิมัง
สังฆพัตตัง
สังฆโคตัง
สัพพรักขารัง
สัพพรักขารัง
บททัพพมกขาสะ
พุทธกุมกสะ
สังฆสะเตเมะ
สังฆสัตเตเมีย
เตกุณวันตาเตโย
เตกุณวันตาเตโย
อิมังสังฆพัตตัง
อิมังสังฆโคตัง
อัตนาสันตกัง
อัตนาสันตกัง
วิยะมัญญเมียเนีย
วิเลียนมัญญเมียเนีย
อันโมตอนโต
อันโมตันโต
อันโมตทวา
อันโมตัทวา
เนยะไทย
เนียยักไทย
เชสัมปไตให้
เทสามปไตยให้
สมัยชนโต
สมัยชันโต
สัพปตกคา
สัพพตกคา
ปมัญจนโต
ปมัญจันโต
อิมินา
เอมินา
นิสันเตเนย
นิสันเตเน
ตุตยามเป
ตุติยามไป
ตะตยามเป
ตัติยามไป
บอปัดประสองดอจำราน้อย
ขอเนี่ย
จองช่วยมามีครับ You know how to tie it, boy? Yeah. จองกาให้สอบ Đấy, rồi, nếu thuốc bom mình thuốc mình tên này, rồi, thuốc dương dương mà mình rồi.
And then twice. That's good. Ooh, that's good.
Yeah, you do good job. Okay. Thank you, baby. You do good job. Wow, great. Don't
Gọi
go.
nó được họ nằm trong này nha. តោះទៅចាប់ដើមបាទ Tết lai này Tết lai Cái nốt mình lại
We also want to thank our friends and family who have come in from out of town or out of state. So I know a number of you traveled quite far to get here. So thank you for being here today. As I look across this room, I see a lot of faces I know very well, and I see some that I don't know as well. So for those of you who don't know me, I am Sue Ann. I am Lee's oldest daughter, and this is Karen, my younger sister. And she and I today are going to kind of tag team this portion of the service. So you're going to see us pass the speech back and forth. And what we'd like to do is share a little bit about my mom's early life story. I think it's probably something that you haven't heard about. And quite honestly, we didn't hear about it until about 2 weeks ago when we sat down and asked her to spend time explaining it to us. It's a long story, and we try to cut it down as much as possible, but it's a very fascinating story, and so we would like to share it with you today. We believe it's one that should be shared, and we hope that you'll enjoy it and that you'll hang in there with us as we get through the details of that. And then after that, we'll transition over to talking about some of the things that we love most about our mom and what made her so special to us. All right, so let's get started. Li Qingti, or in Chinese, Li Qiang, was born on March 24th, 1955. And for those of you who know her really well, you know her birthday's in August, right? So you might be thinking, what do you mean March 24th, 1955? Well, I'm going to explain that. Actually, Karen's going to explain that portion a little bit later, so hold on to that thought. She was born in Bapung Cham, Cambodia, which is located about 2 to 3 hours northwest of Phnom Penh, the city or the capital. She's the second of 4 children. She has an older sister who's already passed a few years ago, and she had 2 younger brothers, one who is with us today. Do you raise your hand? That's her younger brother in there. He lives here in Atlanta. And although she was born in Cambodia, she was raised Chinese. She spoke Chinese, she went to Chinese school, and when you ask her what her ethnicity was, she always proudly said Chinese. So you might wonder, well, how did she get to Cambodia? How did she grow up there? Well, that's because her grandfather, during the Chinese Revolution, immigrated from China to Cambodia to escape the war there because the communists had seized all of his property. And so she always proudly shared the story about how he arrived in Cambodia with just a pair of shorts in his hand. And from there, he built a life, a very successful life. He had a noodle business in his backyard, and he had a big home. My mom grew up there with her parents, brothers and sisters, and then also with her oldest uncle, his wife, and his 7 children. So it was 2 families in one big house, 15 children, all living together. And really, she shared a lot of warm, happy memories growing up as one big happy family up until about the age of 15. And that was 1970. So in 1970, she was 15 years old when a civil war broke out in Cambodia. And that war lasted 5 years. And during that 5 years, her family was dispersed all over the country. My mom went to Phnom Penh, and I'm sure for all of our Cambodian friends, I am totally butchering all of your Cambodian city names. I'm sorry. I was raised Chinese too, as Karen, so you're going to hear a couple of Cambodian cities today. I'm sure we're saying them all wrong. But she was in the city with her aunt and uncle. girl, and her parents and sister and youngest brother were in Vietnam, where they had escaped to for a period of time. And my uncle was actually living, the uncle that's here today, was living in a city close to the Thai border because he was of age to be drafted. And so they wanted him to be close to Thailand so that he could escape and avoid the draft that he had. So in 1975 now, my mom was 20, so there's been 5 years of them being dispersed all over the country. But in 1975, when she was 20, the Khmer Rouge, which is a communist party of Cambodia, they took over the city. They promised peace, and people thought the war was finally over. So my mom's family started reuniting in the city. Well, they soon realized that they were deceived. That April, the Khmer Rouge went around and claimed that the enemy was hiding in the city, and they forced everyone out of their homes. Thousands of people on foot walking into the different parts of the country. My mom, her parents, and her siblings were sent to a small village and told to settle down. And then after a few days, trucks appeared, and they were told these trucks would take them back into the city. But they were lied to again. The trucks took them deeper into the jungle, and then they put them off and then dropped them off in the middle of nowhere with thousands of others, and they were told to settle down again. And so they built a little hut, and they were put to work. And they worked every day. They were slaves in their own country, working in the fields, digging up roots, and planting crops. She had to learn to speak Cambodian because they knew that they weren't Cambodian and they would have been executed. So they needed to learn Cambodian to survive. And this was their everyday life for years. When the water source would dry up where they were at, they would be relocated to another water source to start all over again. They were fed mostly water, and as you can imagine, disease started to spread. And in the span of 9 months, my mom lost her mom, her dad, and her youngest brother to malnutrition and starvation. So at this point, it's just my mom and her sister left, right, and their family. So they decided they would volunteer to work on the frontier, as she called it. And so what this meant was that she and her sister would be transported away from the village to a more primitive location, the frontier, and work out there in the fields. And then, they'd be out there in the fields for a couple months and eventually would be transported back to the village. They decided to volunteer for this because starvation was not as prevalent out there, and they seemed to be fed a little bit better out on the frontier. Still mostly water, but with some rice mixed into it. So for 2 years, my mom and her sister would wake up at 5 a.m. to the sound of a whistling drum. And what that meant was it was time for them to gather their tools, put on their all-black uniform, and go work on the farm or planting crops until dark. And it didn't matter what the weather was like. It had been raining, it had been storming, 90-degree heat. Can you imagine 90-degree heat wearing all black? They had to work day in and day out with no day off. And they did this for 2 years, and from time to time they would get transported back to their village. In 1978, so now we're in 78, my mom and her sister were working on this really large, multi-month project involving people from all different villages. And so imagine people from different villages being transported into a single location to work on a really large project. And they were left here for months. And so what they did was they would set up little campsites where they would spend the night each night and get up the next day and work again. So it was during this project that my mom came across a distant relative who belonged to a camp located just over the bridge. And they started talking, and she found out that my mom and her sister were working. And so this distant relative went to her camp leader and asked if my mom and her sister could join their camp. And the camp leader granted permission, but that still meant that my mom and her sister had to escape from their current camp in the village. And that was a huge, huge risk, because if they had been caught,
in the village. For the first time in 3 years, my mom saw bowls and bowls of rice. I mean, you can only imagine how hard it was these last 4 or 5 years not even getting rice. As Sue mentioned, she only had water to do a little bit of rice. So it was a lot better, off the bat in this new village. They even got off every 10 days, so that was definitely a big improvement. They had some freedom to travel between villages. It was in a nearby village that she was reunited with additional family members that encouraged her and her sister to marry, primarily for the additional protection of her man. At this time, they're not really looking for romance, just being realistic, they really need a man. It's just 2 girls, or ladies, all their own. So that's when this distant relative introduced my mom to my dad. When they met for the first time, they didn't speak, they just exchanged looks. My dad was dressed in all black and dressed very sharp, as she described it. So sharp that she didn't trust him immediately. We all know my mom doesn't trust people immediately. So she shot down the idea of marrying him. And then for months, her sister and her aunt tried to change her mind, introducing her to other men. It was also during this time that Vietnam began invading Cambodia, freeing those under the Khmer Rouge's control with each city that they captured. As they got closer and closer to my mom and dad's village, my mom changed her mind about marrying and chose my dad. And I have to say, we were very happy with her choice. So they went to the village leader and asked for permission to marry. They had a small wedding ceremony, and 2 days later, my dad got sent to another village to harvest some rice. While he was away, the Vietnamese were basically helping. The Vietnamese army arrived at the village, and we set everyone free. My mom and her sister and a few of their relatives headed to Battambang, a city closer to the Thai border, where my dad's older brother's family lived. Battambang was always the next stop in their journey, so they were hoping that they could get reunited with my dad. One day, while in Battambang, my mom and her older sister were walking down the street, and they looked up at the same time to see a young man on a horse in a buggy. They both immediately called out her brother's name, the one that's here right now. After 40 years, they finally found him. My mom was never going to let her brother out of her sight, because she promised her dad that she would always take care of him. And she sadly succeeded in that promise. After 2 months of being separated, my dad and my mom found each other in Battambang, mostly through word of mouth and asking around. Now that they were reunited, the plan was to go from Battambang to Pol Pot, which is a city on the border of Thailand. In total, they had a group of 13, and they paid a Vietnamese delivery truck driver to take them to the border. Once they arrived in Pol Pot, there was a guide that basically was they paid a guide to take them into Thailand for a fee, and then at this point there's about a couple hundred refugees that are traveling to Thailand for freedom. Now we're in April 1979, and they're setting out on foot around 5 o'clock in the evening, and after about a mile and a half, the guide that they paid collected 46 ounces of gold from everyone and directed them to follow a particular path, and don't veer off the path because there's a bunch of landmines. Imagine how scary that could be. You don't know where you're going. It's in the middle of the night, and you're just basically trying to escape to a better life in a different country. As these refugees are walking overnight through the village, they pass these other checkpoints that these Thai natives have set up, but they actually ended up being traps. But they had to give up, gold, money, jewelry, anything that they had in order to get to the next checkpoint. And in the course of 12 hours, my parents were robbed at 7 different checkpoints before they started hearing the buzz of cars and trucks, and they knew they were getting close to civilization in a real city in Thailand. Once they arrived in the city, they were met by the Thai army, who set them up in a former prison that was converted into a refugee camp. They were in this refugee camp for over a month. Most of that time was spent on interviewing and identifying the refugees, filling out paperwork. My dad registered himself and my mom and my uncle as a family of 3. During that interview process, they asked him for their birth dates, and my dad came up with August 7th, 1954, so that's how she got that birth date. My uncle also had one that I don't know, sorry. So one day, about a month after being in that refugee camp, a soldier started calling out names to load these refugees into 1 or 2 buses. They didn't know where the buses were going, but they caught wind that one of the buses was somewhere safe. So my dad quickly bribed the soldier to get their party of 13 onto the safe bus, and it worked out. So they ended up going to another refugee camp where they stayed for 3 months. Every morning in the second refugee camp, all the refugees would check the bulletin board to see if their family was sponsored to immigrate to a different country. There was other families that actually immigrated earlier, so they would try to find those relatives that got immigrated to a different country and see if those family members could go to organizations to see if they could sponsor them. And that's what happened with the group of 13. There were some relatives that had settled in Manchester, England, and they were able to they found a church to sponsor the entire group of 13, which is pretty amazing. That's a good example. Now we just had to wait. We got sponsored and we're waiting on our date to come. But about 2 weeks after finding out that they got sponsored to go to England, my dad's name appeared on the bulletin with his family of 3. And we were sponsored by a Baptist church in some place called Atlanta, Georgia. I had no idea where that was. You know, at this point, my mom and dad had only heard of California, New York. They had no idea where Atlanta was. So they had a big decision to make. Do they decide to take this chance and build a new life in somewhere that they didn't know anyone, had no family in Atlanta? Or do they wait the 2 weeks to go to England? But that could have fallen through too, because some people have been in the refugee camp for years. So they decided to take the chance and come to Atlanta. My mom believes, always firmly believed that was the right decision for them.
Good afternoon, everybody. Today I come up the condolences with Mr. Hong Safety and Sophia Lam. They all sponsor my temple. Today, it is very sad day for us that we lost our beloved person. She was a wonderful mom and grandma and fantastic wife. She was a very respectful, hopeful person, helpful person for our community. But I would like to offer my heartfelt condolences to you and your family, Mrs. Ân Ly Kiên. So be at peace with our Heavenly Mother. Secondly, from my heart, I pray for peace and comfort for you and your loved one in difficult time, and offer my condolences to you all. Third, during this time, his body will go away from us a little bit more, but Mrs. Ân Ly Kiên, gentlewoman, so will be always be in our heart forever. Life is the greatest gift from God and Buddha give us. For this is only the bridge toward eternal life with the Buddha. Certainly, heavenly is rejoicing, another soul has finally reached her true home. Last but not least, I would like to send a message to everyone. Please live a good life by giving happiness to each other, being honest and loyalty to each other, and treat each other like you want to be treated. I would like to declare all good deeds that I have done for Mrs. Enligian. May her soul rest in peace. Thank you. After that, I would like to pray for her by smiling. Làm quân proma vì tội nhớ ý đó thom tục ắt sáng tục đời luôn say anh chẳng ơi phùng thật hôm thế nơi nất dường như lối này làm đời kiệt máu tôi biết cày em sạch nhớ so sánh lại kia thơ ni anatta son song dồn sắp xanh dồn chuồng ơi sáng kết đá thì đã sao đi dồn rộp ơi ăn tri miền Pran ơi an rai đôi nàng ngái của kết nãy của ráng pha chất khăn chắp rơ sai chất
nguồn ơi tuân tổ ơi đôi cơn nâng tay thằng chạp rô xa thằng bát nơi tư ôm. Please everybody say sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you. Before we start Buddhist lighting ceremony, please stand up and pay respect to the body a moment, please. Close your eyes when you stand up. Do meditation a moment, please. Or pay respect, the last pay respect. Back in long, and pray for her together. Thank you so much. Please sit down. Kita tetap biasa untuk berbicara baik untuk kita
outside, I think, on a little bit of a parade around the building. It's part of the ceremony.
That's it.